From LinkedIn News, I'm Leah Smart, host of Everyday Better, an award-winning podcast dedicated to personal development. Join me every week for captivating stories and research to find more fulfillment in your work and personal life. Listen to Everyday Better on the LinkedIn Podcast Network, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
From LinkedIn News, I'm Jessie Hempel, host of the Hello Monday podcast. Start your week with the Hello Monday podcast. We'll navigate career pivots. We'll learn where happiness fits in. Listen to Hello Monday with me, Jessie Hempel, on the LinkedIn Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to our practice session. In our practice sessions, we invite our featured guests to show off their negotiation and conflict resolution skills in a realistic scenario. In this session, I want you to pay attention to what our guest does and not to what I do, because while they are trying to show off their skills and teach you, I'm trying to frustrate their efforts in different ways through things like aggression, annoyance, emotionality, or awkwardness. And then after the practice session, we debrief and talk about what worked, what didn't work, and what you can use in your next difficult conversation. Hey everybody, welcome back. And we are in the sparring session. We have celebrity Dr. Zwade Marshall here with us today. And I'll give you the floor, Zwade, to tell us about the situation and the role you'll be playing and the role I'll be playing.
Celebrity, I wish. Tell it to my wife and kids while I take out the trash tonight. I'm Dr. Zwade Marshall. I'm a double board certified anesthesiologist and interventional spine specialist. I have an interventional practice in Atlanta, Georgia. And today I'll be talking with Kwame about a fairly typical patient interaction that's based on the chronic pain patient. And I think many of your listeners may have heard of the opioid crisis and the fact that, there are 2 Americans that die every hour from opioid overdoses. It's really an epidemic that's been afflicting a lot of middle-class households across the country. And in that crisis, at the underpinning of it are these patients who, by no fault of their own, may have had an accident or an injury and may have been prescribed medications that just spiraled out of control. So Kwame will be playing the role of a 44-year-old male who had a motor vehicle accident 15 years prior. That accident resulted in him having a left upper extremity injury where his arm has now chronic, constant shooting neuropathic pain. And over the years, he's been prescribed high-dose opioids, OxyContin 30 milligrams 3 times daily, fentanyl patches 75 milligrams every 3 days, and then Percocet tablets, 10 milligram tablets 4 times daily. And so I just described a very heavy opioid dosage. Now, he's coming to see me as a new patient because his former prescribing physician has now closed down his office. And what I know that the patient does not know is that physician's office was closed down by the DEA because of overprescribing narcotics. And so this gentleman is coming to see me. He's got a wife, 2 young kids, and is very pleasant demeanor, but is looking for me to take over his pain prescribing of his narcotics. And that's pretty much why he's here. There's no other interest in our visit, but the fact that I can give him the medications that he wants.
Perfect. I have my marching orders. All righty. Let's get into it, and I'll let you go ahead and start the interaction, and we will begin now.
Excellent. So good afternoon, Mr. Christian. Welcome to the office. I understand that you're here to see me because of chronic left arm pain. Can you tell me more about your pain complaints?
Yeah, Doc. Thanks for seeing me, especially such short notice. 15 years ago, I had this accident, and I've just been dealing with pain ever since. And it's just a part of my life that I guess I've grown to accept. It's had a horrible impact on everything that I do with my family, with work, anything that I want to do, relaxation, anything. It's just always there. And so I need help. I need help with dealing with this pain just so I can live my life. That's all I'm looking to do.
Understood. And we're here to be helpful. Can you take a little bit more time and tell me about the nature and the character of the pain? Is it sharp, shooting, dull, aching? How would you describe what you experience on a daily basis?
Yeah, the pain is sharp and it's shooting. So it's on my left side in my arm. It shoots down my arm. But it's a sharp pain. I hear people talk about these dull, aching pains. It's never been my experience. It's just a constant, sharp shooting pain. Sometimes I get some relief.
What helps?
I just find a position where it doesn't hurt as much. And so when I find that position, it's rare, but I find it, I hang out in this position as long as I can, but eventually I have to move, like just a little shift, and then it's gone again, and the pain just starts shooting back, And so over the course of my time trying to find out what works, I had a previous doctor. I love my doctor. He was amazing, and he was the only person that seemed interested in helping me. And I think that just the way that the medical profession is going right now, the doctors out there, people are just in it for money, and they don't care to help people anymore. And I had a doctor, and I had him for a few years, and he actually cared to help me. He cared about me, he cared about my 2 kids, cared about my wife, and cared about making my life better. And my life was a lot better when he was around, but he's gone. And the thing is, I've heard a lot of great things about you. It's clear from the reviews online that you're somebody who actually cares about people, just like my other doctor. And so I'm glad you took the time, and I'm glad to get help.
We're happy to be here, and we treat very many patients like you. And a part of our treatment plan is to ensure that you understand that we certainly have seen this pain condition before and can provide the techniques that can be helpful to improve your function and quality of life. Now, you mentioned having a wife and 2 kids. What are the activities that you do with them that provoke or exacerbate that pain?
Anything. I mean, it's embarrassing to say, but I mean, with my wife, it's been really hard to be intimate with her without being distracted, by the pain. It's been leading to other issues with a little bit of
intimacy issues.
Yeah, intimacy issues. So that's been challenging for me. It's been challenging for her. My kids are active. My son is 12. My daughter is 10, and they have a lot of energy. And they want to go out and play. My wife can't play with them all the time. And so when I try to move, anytime I try to move, I feel that pain. So I have to stay. I can't move and enjoy my time with my family anymore. And it's just it's so hard.
Take me back to before the accident. What were the things that you did? What were your hobbies? What was your profession? What do you do for fun now? And what did you do before?
Yeah, so I was I like to work out. My friends and I, we would go to the gym. I think we were kind of a little bit bro-ish. We would go and we would work out, try to see who can outlift each other. Never liked cardio. Cardio was just, we never got along. But I would go out and play basketball, play tennis, and those type of things. I had a really active lifestyle. And just to unwind, I would ride on my motorcycle. And, my mom, my wife, they never liked the motorcycle, but I did. It was free. And I think it gave me that sense of rebellion. And so, obviously, I guess they get to say, I told you so for the rest of my life, because here we are now. But I was really active. I was really, really active. I worked at a construction site. And so it was hard work, but I like using my hands. I really like using my hands and having the satisfaction of seeing like a blank slate, and then coming back and seeing something built up there and seeing I had a part of that. So that's what I used to do, but obviously that's not something I can do anymore.
Sure. I think creating something can be very therapeutic. And so having a history in the construction business, I think makes sense. And getting you to a place where you can get back to doing some creation, and we can figure out what it can be over the course of the next several weeks. I think we can get it on a path to getting you feeling better. Now, I have your medication list in front of me. Can you tell me about other therapies that you've tried besides these medications? Have you done anything else?
I feel like I've tried it all, Doc, and the only thing that works is this therapeutic cocktail that I have right now. Some oxy, some fentanyl, some perks, and that's really the only thing that's worked.
Sure.
I've tried some physical therapy that just made everything worse. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Like it hurt throughout, and I just became. It took a psychological toll because it felt like it was almost abusive. Because I wasn't getting any better from that. I saw some shrink one time, and they just told me a bunch of mumbo jumbo, and I stopped after 2 sessions. And then once I got my doctor, my buddy, he gave me what I needed, and life has been closer to normal since then. And it's just been spiraling out of control since he left.
I'm sorry to hear that. Let's talk a little bit more about some of your records. Show that you've been having a history of constipation. How often are you going to the bathroom on a weekly basis for a bowel movement?
I would say on a good week, maybe about 3 times.
Okay. And that's been happening for how long?
Man, it's hard to pick a starting point for that. Probably it's almost a decade. Okay. And you're well hydrated. You eat a lot of high fiber foods, I presume. I
Yes.
do. I try to hydrate a lot. I'll be honest, Doc. I don't like foods with fiber in it. They tend to not taste that great, but I've been forcing myself. I take some supplements that help.
Sure. Okay. And I understand as well that you've made a note in your new patient documents that you've having a lot of depression and anxiety over the course of the past several years related to the pain as well. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been terrible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So let me, I'll examine you now and we'll take a look and see exactly what's going on here. I do have your imaging reports and records and I've seen them. And so I'll go over with you the diagnosis and some of the therapeutic options that we can offer.
Does your company invest in professional development training? If you believe that your team would benefit from a negotiation workshop, all you need to do is go to our website, fill out the workshop request form, and then we'll set up a time to chat. These workshops are completely customizable, and we've done them all around the country. Negotiation and conflict resolution skills are beneficial across all professions, but they're especially useful in procurement, purchasing, sales, sourcing, and contract management. Our calendar is filling up quickly, and we even have some workshops scheduled for next year. If you think you might want one, I'd suggest reaching out soon so you don't miss out. Check out the link in the description to learn more, and we will be right back after this.
Hey you, I'm Andrew Seaman. Do you want a new job? Or do you want to move forward in your career? Well, you should listen to my weekly show called Get Hired with Andrew Seaman. We talk about it all, and it's waiting for you, yes you, wherever you get your podcasts.
Brace the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started today at linkedin.com/marketer. Terms and conditions apply.
Now we're at the point where I'm going to give the plan. So, Mr. Christian, thank you for being in here with me today. Thanks for your candor and for telling me the entire story of your accident. It's clear to me that you're a very resilient gentleman. Looking at the injury records, the MRI, the nerve conduction studies, you have a condition called complex regional pain syndrome, which is debilitating for many and is associated with very severe pain, as you have experienced. I think that the treatments that you mentioned, as we discussed the things that you've done, would be the beginning of a treatment regimen for someone with this complicated diagnosis. But I want to go over with you now in more detail the things that I think can be the most helpful to not just improving your pain, but getting you back to a place of function, to having you be able to function with your family, your kids, those interactions, even getting you doing some sports, and or some kind of a creation activity, whether it be painting. I know you're right hand dominant, and that left hand is important, but I want you to be able to feel comfortable using it to some degree. The first thing is, at the cornerstone of these chronic pain conditions is good physical therapy, and by a real expert therapist who understands the mechanism of injury for your specific unique case. In your case, because those nerve endings have to interact with your muscles and tendons, you want to have a therapist that understands when to push and when to give you some relief and some relaxation. The key is to get you to having some desensitization, where usual activities should not be triggering a very painful response. And the only way to get there will be to exposing those nerves to some sensitization by doing activities like cold compresses, having your arm in a rice bowl, and getting in touch with that sensation of having different textures against that arm. That's number one. The second thing is, there are these nerve blocks that can be helpful with numbing the nerve pain down the arm. And that block is done under ultrasound guidance or with an x-ray machine, where we very carefully and gently get the medication to spread along the nerve plexus and give you some relief. Maybe temporary, maybe enough time for you to tolerate going to a physical therapist to having some of that therapy actually work. I think the fact that you've been on opioid medications is not unreasonable. Based upon the amount of pain that folks have in this condition, I can see that as being an option that we should continue, though the dosing that you're on is likely causing you to have some other problems. So if you recall, you mentioned having constipation of 3 bowel movements a week. That is very abnormal, and it's likely caused by the narcotics slowing down the motility in your gut, so your bowels don't move as fast as they should. And that's a known consequence of high-dose opioids. All right, so that's number one. The second thing is the intimacy challenges with your wife. That's also a known side effect of the testosterone levels being lowered by chronic high-dose narcotics. And so giving us some time to work carefully with your dosing, not discontinuing the medications, but slowly over time, weaning them down to a safe level, while we also employ the other techniques that can give you some relief in the near to medium term, and then getting you back to a place of being functional as well. Let me pause and give you a chance to react to the recommendations that I have.
So what I'm hearing is that you're gonna take away the meds that I need in order to feel better. So I've been with quacks in the past who tried to take away my meds, and it never works. It never works. I just end up in more pain. And then they go say, hey, go work with this person to bend you up and cause more pain. And so that's what I'm hearing. This is torture. This isn't fair. This is why I like my old doctor. He was the only person who gave me what I needed to feel better. And I don't understand why it's so hard to find a good doctor nowadays.
Sure, I completely understand, and your perspective on this is reasonable and warranted, because you've been in this regimen for some time and it's been effective for you. I think what you're not appreciating right now is that you're having other consequences from this medication regimen that over the long term can cause you grave harm. This dosing is associated with overdose deaths, where this medicine acts on your lungs to slow your breathing, where you can go to sleep one night and just not wake up because of the high dose narcotics slowing your breathing and causing you to have lack of oxygen and just death. And so it's part of my job as your doctor to help with the pain. And again, I'm not going to discontinue your medications. We're going to have a plan in place to slowly wean them, and we're not going to decrease until you're beginning to get some level of increased function and pain relief with the other therapies that I'm also recommending. And so I want you to just be open to the idea that we'll be working in concert to have a number of different options where the goal is to get you more functional. And increasing your potential for a functional life by decreasing your risk of death with high dose narcotics.
And here's the thing that bothers me is because people like you come in and you tell me, you dictate over my life and you say, this is what you need, this is what you don't need, this is good for you, this is bad for you, those type of things. But people don't seem to care about how I'm feeling, because you're saying, oh, you might die. Or the other alternative is, oh, you just have a lot of pain and live a miserable life that's not worth living. You know, for me at this point, it's been 15 years. The only thing that works is this level of medication. You want to take it away and you're going to create a situation where I feel as though I'm put in a position where I'm now living a life not worth living. And I'm just supposed to be cool with that. And I think it's cool for you to do it because other doctors are like you are not afraid to take risks. And frankly, you're not feeling the pain. And so it's really easy for you to sit on the sideline and say, oh, yeah, just do this and be in horrendous pain for how long? I don't know. But we're going to take away the thing that works. And we're going to say, oh, yeah, we'll give you a little bit of the thing that works, but not enough to make you feel better. It's just so infuriating.
Sure. And I'm sorry you're feeling that way, but I don't think you're actually hearing my recommendation. I'm not going to discontinue your medications. We're going to work together to get it at a dose that's safe, that will not have you overdose and die. The other thing that you've not yet done over the course of the many years of you having this illness is tried these recommendations that I'm offering to you. You've not had the nerve blocks that I'm offering today. You've also not had the kind of physical therapy that I'm recommending. And so what I'd like for you to hear me say is that I am not taking away your meds as a way to punish you. I'm looking to find a comprehensive treatment plan that'll get you feeling better and being more functional and decreasing your risk of death and immobility with a dangerous cocktail of medications. And that's going to be a process over time. And I want you to trust me that we're going to work together and we're going to devise this plan together. And so if something is failing, you'll give me that feedback, and we're going to try to ensure that I'm not failing you, but that we're getting you to an outcome that makes sense for your overall health.
So what happens if we do this and then it doesn't work? I don't think it'll work. We say we do this and it doesn't work. Then will you put me back to that level of medication so I can at least get some reprieve?
No, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. What I want you to decide today to do is to enter into a treatment plan that involves the therapy, the nerve block, some of those medications, and see how you progress over time.
Good. And let's end the scene here. That was good. That was really good. Let's do some. Let me read off some of my observations. So there were a few times where I tried to say something that I knew you would disagree with. The first one was pretty early, where I said my previous doctor was good because he gave me all of the medications that I want. And I looked on your reviews, and they say you're a great doctor. And so essentially what I'm trying to insinuate by that is like, hey, I consider this doctor to be great because he gave me what I wanted. You're great, so you should give me what I wanted, right? And I think for a lot of people, the people pleaser inside of them says, well, I want to be liked. And so a move like that can kind of get into their heads. So when somebody says something like that to try to almost smooth talk you and make it seem as though you should work for their admiration and their appreciation. How do you stay strong in those types of situations with that low-level persuasion?
Sure. So I think a part of the what's impressive about this volley is that you played the part of the patient exceptionally well, and to your point, that's a common tactic employed by most patients when they'll either do splitting where the doctor is great and the staff is bad, or they'll use your reviews or their old doctors as a foil to say that this was great about them or this was bad about them. So I know that you're better, so you're going to do this thing. I don't acknowledge it at all. So I don't give it any oxygen. I don't address it directly. I make it I'll usually take notes while they're speaking, and I continue to take notes so that they get from me that I'm collecting all of the data, including that part, right? But I'm not going to respond to it directly. And so over the course of the visit, you'll never hear me bad talk their previous doctor, unless it came to a point of them demanding a medication. And then I might use as my final lever that, look, that doctor may be in jail right now because of these medications at this dosage. And that's likely why you're not seeing him. And good luck finding another doctor who's going to prescribe you medicines at this dosage in the future. I'm all you've got. So, and I'm not taking it away from you. You'll be getting some of them, but you got to do some other things as well. And so that tends to be the kind of last line of defense where they realize quickly that they've got nowhere else to go. And so my therapeutic recommendation will be viewed as a lot more empathetic and a lot more reasonable when the alternative is nothing.
Yep. Oh, this is great. So listeners, you're probably familiar with the term best alternative to a negotiated agreement, or BATNA. And so this is, if you do not get a deal, what is your alternative? And so in this situation, what you do is, just like any other negotiation, you don't start talking about the BATNA unless you absolutely have to, because it can be perceived as a threat. And so, Zwade, if you were to lead with that, then you are eroding the relationship. You're just like, hey, my name is Zwade and your old doctor was a quack. That's probably not going to be great for the relationship building, right?
That's right.
And so you say, just like you said, as a last resort, you're letting them know, hey, I understand what your alternative is, and your alternative is not very good. I am your best alternative. You are here right now. So this is our opportunity to make things better. And so you hold that card until you need to.
That's right. And when you're forced to deploy that card, it's not enjoyable, because you still run the risk of eroding that alliance. But what is my alternative, right? So the patient's BATNA is they've got nowhere else to go. At the point that I'm having to deploy that card, I've got nowhere else to go. This is because whatever was said that led me to have to use that card proves that this may not be the right person for my practice. So it's either you're going to comply and toe the line, or you're not going to be under my care, because I can choose who to take care of, and I cannot be fighting with someone over the course of our treatment sessions who want something that's become illegal and has a high risk of death.
Right. And I agree with you. I would just rephrase it, because you say you don't have any alternative. You actually do have an alternative, which is, I'm going to see my next patient. Because the reality is, if this patient chooses, hey, if you don't prescribe this in this illegal and dangerous type of way to me, I'm leaving, then you say, okay, then leave. I will continue to run my practice and have a loving family at home, right?
Right.
Because you don't need that specific patient. You want to help them, but your existence is not wrapped up in it. And I see so many negotiators struggle because they get their identity wrapped up in the specific deal. You see people in relationships struggle because they get their identity wrapped up in that specific person, not finding the right relationship, but having a relationship with that specific person. And one of the most dangerous emotions to feel in a negotiation is a feeling of need, because if you need that person, that means you're going to be willing to give up a lot to keep that person. And in your case, it could be your license and your freedom if you make those types of concessions.
You're absolutely correct and beautifully said. I'll layer on one wrinkle in complexity to the fact that I don't need that patient. You're right. I can continue to build and grow my practice with folks that are like-minded and will subscribe to my philosophy, until that patient leaves your office and goes and reports it on Facebook, Twitter, your website, and the medical board. And you're now dealing with responding to a complaint of a disgruntled patient. And I'll be exonerated, but the energy, the brain damage from having to defend yourself to the public, right? When there are many chronic pain patients who've been mishandled by doctors, and all of a sudden a complaint about me, phrased the right way, could make me appear to be one of those doctors as well. And so a large part of what colors my interaction with patients is ensuring that even if it's not going to work out, they leave feeling respected. And they leave feeling as though I am trying to be a responsible doctor and I really believe that my recommendation is the best thing for them and it's the best science available, so that they'll be less inclined to trash me publicly, because that actually does affect me in a real and lasting way, because you can't get those reviews to go away after someone trashes you unless they take it on themselves. Funnily enough, this scenario is a real patient scenario, someone that I saw a few months ago, and he was not adversarial the way you played in the volley. He was soft-spoken, he was not a professional anymore. He was a professional before he was injured. 2 kids, wife, and at the end of the interaction, he left appearing to subscribe to the therapy that I recommended, which is much like I told you. And then 2 days later, I wake up to a 1-star review on Google left by his wife, who said that, and she wrote a very eloquent narrative online, and she was not there in the visit, but she described the pain patient from the perspective of a spouse. And it was credible and it was heart-wrenching that she's seen her husband over the years regress and struggle and suffer in pain, going from ER to ER, trying to get help, having finally met a doctor that was giving him a regimen that was effective and worked for him, only to be seen by a new doctor, Dr. Marshall, whose reviews were stellar, and they had hope that he'll be able to get the treatment that's worked for him for the last decade. And came to my office, and it was, they quickly realized that I pulled the rug out from under them, and now a husband and father can't function with his family and kids. And that's the review that was left. Now, as I read the review, I felt like it was a gut punch. It was my first really bad review, but it was so credible. As I read it, and as someone who takes care of pain patients, I can see a population of my patients identifying with the kind of trauma that she describes having to deal with as a spouse of a chronic pain patient. And everything she described was credible. And it's a part of the agony that these families deal with when they're caring for a loved one in chronic pain. So I called him, the patient, and I said, I thought we had an understanding and a treatment plan that was going to be effective going forward. And he's like, yes, doc, we do. I said, okay, well then, are you aware of this review that your wife put? And he's like, oh my goodness. When I came back from the visit, I explained to her the plan, and she immediately hearkened back to 5 years ago when she was pregnant with her second child, and I was having a really bad pain episode then because a previous doctor had stopped my medications, and she was a single parent for the first year and a half of my child's life because I was trying to find pain medicines from ER to ER. And so any discussion around weaning and changing my medications took her back to that place. And so he was extremely apologetic. Suffice it to say that I invited her to the next visit that we had. So I met with both him and her at the next visit, and that review is no longer there. But I was able to salvage that one. But I know that doctors everywhere are facing this dilemma, right? And it's not that we tap dance for reviews, but we care about the perception that people have or patients have about what we do and how we do it. Because we're serving two bosses here. I've got to comply with the board requirements. I have the law enforcement agencies looking at my practice very, very closely. And then I've got these patients like this guy who's not a drug seeker, but he's been given an inappropriate regimen for the last decade, a regimen that was actually appropriate 10 years ago. That society and the rules have now changed, where what was fine 10 years ago is no longer fine. So now we have to change the regimen to make it more compliant with what's happening today. And that's not the patient's fault. They did not demand the dose that they're on. But now I have to do the cleanup job of getting them down to a dose that makes sense and convincing them that my methods will actually help them in the long run, even though there's this short-term pain. So it's incredibly challenging. And each negotiation does not end with the outcome where you feel good about it. But you begin to feel better about yourself in that at least you've convinced yourself that the narrative that you're giving to these patients is indeed the right one. And you have enough success stories from the ones that stay with you that can get down from 500 morphine equivalents to 50 and function and live, highly engaged lives, even though they're going to have chronic pain for the rest of their life. They become less pain focused. And those successes make up for the ones that you don't get to understand why it is that you have to prescribe the way you do.
Wow. I have nothing to add to that. That's incredible. And I think, we have so many layers here. So we have the actual interaction with the patient. Then we have the subsequent interaction with the patient about the review. And then we have another interaction with the patient and with the patient's wife. And I think one of the things that we have to consider here is that there's no such thing as a one-on-one negotiation. That's a myth. It's never just one-on-one. You always have to consider third parties. Who are the people, who are the stakeholders that are going to be part of this interaction, even if they're not physically here at the negotiating table. And I think this is a powerful example of the power of difficult conversations, because you had the initial conversation and it went well. And then you had established a relationship with the patient to the point where you could have this conversation that wasn't necessarily scheduled and just say, hey, this is the situation. What happened? And then you were able to be successful in that interaction as well. And I think what this really shows is that when it comes to the art and science of negotiation and conflict resolution, it's not a question of whether or not you negotiate. It's just a question of whether or not you negotiate well. And a lot of times the different professionals, they say, okay, I'm an engineer. Okay, I'm a professor. Okay, I'm whatever the profession happens to be, but they don't recognize that the degree of happiness and professional success that they have is going to be dictated in large part by how well you do in these difficult conversations.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think, the other part of being a professional that has these conversations on a daily basis is that I find myself being surprised when I'm affected by an outcome that I didn't anticipate, right? Like I couldn't quantify how deflating it was to have climbed that hill with that patient, gotten to a point where I knew he was going on a limb to believe in me and believe in this process, and having that interaction, and then seeing a third party derail the entire process publicly, and seeing a description of the same negotiation that you were a part of described publicly in a way that's so resonant and so credible and so wrong, right? And it's the power of social media, it's the power of Twitter and Facebook, where everyone has a microphone, and the folks that consume the content don't have the benefit of the two sides. But if the side that's out sounds credible, has an emotional tie to the story, and describes it in a way that's descriptive and relatable, God help the other person, because it's really hard to counteract that narrative. I was not even going to attempt to respond to that. You can't engage publicly with that, because the other part of it is that there's HIPAA, right? So I cannot go toe to toe on a public forum about an interaction that's bonded or bounded by the confidentiality oath. And so we're kind of battling with one arm tied behind your back, and just struggling through it all at the same time.
Man, that's tough. Again, it just shows the complexity of these interactions. And before you go, I want to talk about some of the other things that you did really well in this simulation too, because like I said, you didn't bite on my ridiculous statements. I called you a quack. You gave a smirk.
That was a good line. That was a good line. I almost broke character for that one.
You didn't bite on that, which was great. I liked that you complimented me through the process, because you said you described me as resilient, which is great. That makes me feel good. It makes me feel seen and acknowledged. Yeah, this was tough. You are a tough person for making it this far. And then going further, saying that this is debilitating for many. And so essentially it's the compliment of, this would have killed a lesser man.
That's right.
And that resonated with me. So that was really great. And then you talked about the shared goal. You said, this is what I want for you. Seems like, based on what you're saying, this is what you want. We want to work collaboratively. And you've mentioned that before. I don't think you used the specific word collaborative, but I think you said working in concert. And that was really, really great. And then you also talked about just like you described in the full interview that aired probably 2 days before. In this, you did a really great job of talking about how I'm experiencing other things that are not that great. The intimacy with my wife is difficult. Constipation, that's difficult, those type of things. And I would rather not have that. And you tied that to the dosing. And again, it made it more difficult for me to resist. I still found a way, but it made it more difficult. And then again, hitting the ego, because you built me up with the resilience compliment, but then also you said, hey, this cocktail will lower your testosterone. No man wants to hear that, right? And so it's just the various layers of persuasion that you put on here that were fantastic. And then I think the thing that ties it all together is your tone. You were very even throughout the interaction. You always demonstrated that you were in control of the situation. And more importantly, you were in control of your emotions with your tone. And you were very assertive. When it was a no, it was a very clear no. You didn't say, well, maybe we could, or maybe we should try. No, you were very clear. When somebody ran into a boundary, you said, no, that won't work. And here's why. This is your goal. This is my goal. Our goals are the same. That doesn't get you where you want to go. And there was no mincing of words with the way that you said that. I think you did a fantastic job with setting that boundary while still being empathetic throughout the interaction.
Thank you for that. And it's been intentional to do the things that you mentioned. I think many patients, like you did, are going to tell you their pain story, their pain history, in a manner that's trying to convince you that they have legitimate pain, because it's so subjective, right? And so pain patients are always trying to prove to their doctors that I am one of the legitimate ones. And so as much as I can acknowledge and validate and signal that I understand who you are and I understand what you've been through, the words that I use and the way I the way I summarize and get to recommendations, it's paying a nod to that effort on their part to convey to me that this is legitimate pain. So as much as I can recognize and acknowledge, it helps with that alliance, because then they feel, as you said, heard, and it makes it easier for them to subscribe to a therapy or an option that I'm giving if they felt as though I've heard them fully and I recognize and validate whatever their complaints are.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, I think, like you said, it's intentional. I like that you used the word intentional, because that shows that it's not a natural skill it's a natural skill for very few. It's not natural for me, but it's a skill. You can learn it, you can improve, and you can get better. So listeners, take notes and find ways to use this in your professional life. And Zwade, again, before you go, let the listeners know about you, how they can get in touch, and about the practice.
Sure. Thank you again for having me, Kwame. My name is Dr. Zwade Marshall. I am an interventional pain specialist in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm the Chief Medical Officer for Regenerative Spine and Pain Specialists, and that's regenerativespines.com. Thank you.
Thanks, Zwade. Appreciate it. Congratulations! You've just joined an elite club. By listening to a full episode, you're now officially on the Negotiate Anything team. So welcome aboard. What most team members do is they subscribe to the podcast because that allows them to automatically get the latest episodes of the show. The best things in life lie on the other side of difficult conversations. Keep learning, keep practicing, and keep getting better. Your relationships will improve, your career will soar, and you'll have the confidence you need to get the most out of these crucial conversations. Again, thank you for joining the team. We're excited to have you, and I will see you in the next episode.